And now Work Matters with Julie Mann.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to that show that ponders, does work matter? And if it does, why? On this show, we explore topics that are important to creating work that does matter. And today we're going to explore the topic of the OSHA Vaccine Mandate. I've said that so many times, how could I mess that up, right, Dave? Joining me today in the studio is Dave Worthams, and we're excited to be in studio, number one, and to really talk and kind of dig into this new topic relative to the OSHA Vaccine Mandate. Dave is the Director of Human Resources Policy with the Michigan Manufacturers Association, and we've known each other for a while, and he's the wizard. So to have him here, man, I am actually really
I don't know
excited.
if I'm a wizard. I'm not. I wear glasses, but I'm not Harry Potter.
Okay. Well, we're going to lean in with this guy knows a lot of stuff. So, Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Awesome to see you again.
Oh, yeah. It's so great to be here. So let's just kind of start in with, there's a lot of buzz, right, about this new OSHA vaccine mandate. So if you don't mind, kind of frame that overview,
Sure.
Kind of like what's going on. And from there, I have a feeling we'll have plenty of questions we can poke around.
So back in, we started getting rumors about this in late August, but actually in September, President Biden came out with a multifaceted plan of how he was going to take on COVID. We were starting to get into the height of Delta and how that was going to impact the country. And so he saw the numbers, wanted to do something real quick. And so he came up with this multifaceted plan. Part of that plan was to have the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, issue a rule that would mandate employers with 100 employees or more would have to either have all their employees vaccinated, or for those who did not want to be vaccinated, require that they have a weekly negative COVID test that they would show in order to get into the workplace. At the same time, he also was going to have a change in federal contracts so that anyone who was a federal contractor or a federal subcontractor would have to mandate the COVID vaccine for all their employees, but the contractors would not have an option to do a negative test or anything like that. That was across the board. So that sets up the whole process, and OSHA starts doing meetings and starts talking with their lawyers and comes up with 500 pages of language.
Yes.
That was released a couple weeks back.
490. Come on, it was just 490.
You know, I've worked in government all my life, so we always round up because it's always rounding errors. So.
Last I knew you were on 488, so I'm on your team. I'm going to get you to that finish line.
I appreciate that. Good looking out. So they released the rule, and what they released was technically called an Emergency Temporary Standard, or ETS. This is very similar to what OSHA did last year when COVID first hit, before the vaccine came out, with a number of their rules, and this would coincide with the executive orders that Governor Whitmer had issued that then got rejected by the courts. And so then that's where OSHA steps in with their version of ETS. And that's important, and I'll get to that in just a bit. So OSHA's ETS says, again, employers with 100 or more corporate-wide, doesn't matter if it's 5 people here and 5 people across the street and 20 people in Detroit and another 30 up in Marquette. If you have more than 100 corporate-wide, then you are required in the U.S.
Right.
Then you are required to adopt a policy by December 4th, 2021, that says either you get a vaccine or you provide a negative test, and then would require employers to keep track of vaccination status of all their employees, and made sure that if you have someone who is not vaccinated, but they have a negative test, they can come in, but they've got to social distance, they got to wear face masks, they got to do the whole thing. And then in those states that have a state agency that kind of enforces the OSHA rules, they've got to make sure that the state policy is consistent with what OSHA has adopted. So the other part of the rule is that on January 5th, 2021 is when the negative test proof of negative test portion starts to take effect.
Right.
So it's kind of a two-step process. Once the rule has come out, OSHA then has 30 days to update their state plan to at least adopt this by reference, if not to do something more direct. And MyOSHA is in the process of adopting this by reference, so it will be applicable to all Michigan businesses, and MyOSHA will be the point people who would then enforce the rule, not the folks from OSHA.
So 30 days from the December date or from the January date?
30 days from November 4th.
Oh, from the release of the ETS.
When the OSHA ETS came out. So MyOSHA has to then adopt that by reference by December 4th as well.
Okay.
And they're in the process of doing that.
Okay.
We have had conversations with Sean Egan over at MyOSHA. They've assured us that all they're going to do is adopt this by reference. They're not going to add on Michigan's little spin on this.
Oh, my goodness, is that wonderful?
That's a good thing for those who are Michigan-centric businesses.
Mm-hmm. Does that seem to be, again, because we've got listeners outside of Michigan, but in general, do you think that's going to be, I know this is hypothesizing and nobody has the magic 8 ball, but do you think that that's going to be the general direction that states kind of go, or do you think they're going to? There
are 26 states that are like that have their own version of MyOSHA. Yes. Now, 3 of those states have been found by OSHA to be out of compliance: Texas, Colorado, Utah, I think. Okay. Don't quote me on that. So those states have a lot more work than the remaining 23 do. But basically, 23 states of the union most likely will be like MyOSHA, just adopt by reference because they're already in compliance with OSHA standards.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah. There's some other good things though that are in the rule in general. For example, the cost of the test, if that's the policy that an employer decides to adopt, is not covered by the employer. The employee has to cover the cost of the test. Similarly, employers do not have to provide face masks for those who are not vaccinated when they provide the negative test. The test has to come. It can't just be one of those self-administered tests. You actually have to go down to Sparrow or go to your doctor or a hospital or what have you. It has to be from a licensed testing facility. And for those who continue to work remotely, who don't come into a centralized workplace, they don't have to do a test. So if you're working from home, you don't have to worry about the test.
Nor prove vaccination status, correct?
Nor prove your vaccination status. You
Unless
only have to do that if you come in. So,
right.
if like my wife, for example, she works for a regional bank. She's been working from home for a year and a half, and I'm kind of jealous, frankly. But if were she to have to go into a branch for a work day, were she to have to go into her actual office there in Oshtemo, she would have, and she was not vaccinated, she would have to provide a negative test, proof of negative test, before she would be able to go in that week. But then if she works from home the following week, then she doesn't have to provide the test for that particular week. Right.
So go back to testing for 1 second. Sure. So so it's not. I'm going to go back even a step further.
Okay.
So from an employer standpoint of view, or from a reg standpoint of view, the employer can either choose to take a vaccine mandate stance and or vaccine plus testing stance,
yes.
Right? So those are the two. Those are the only two options that employers have.
Right. Those are the only 2 options, and OSHA has been nice enough to put out 2 sample policies on their website where you actually can download the rule, and that's kind of the plug and play type of thing. But I always offer this caveat before adopting a sample policy, whether it's from MyOSHA, whether it's from OSHA, whether it's from DHHS, whoever. Make sure your legal counsel takes a look at it.
Exactly.
And cross your own T's and dot your own I's.
Right.
Don't just take it for gospel.
Right. Okay. Because I think that's really important. Because what I've heard from some people is they think that the employers have more choice in the matter, and they really don't. Like, it's you either do 100% mandate or you do mandate and testing, and it's the employer does not have to cover that cost. Now, are the insurance companies, let's go to that testing component. That was my second question that I started with, and I was like, let her back up. So the insurance companies, my understanding is as well do not have to cover the cost of the test.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So for those who choose not to be vaccinated, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
For those who choose not to be vaccinated, recognize that one of the fallouts from that decision will be, all right, you're going to have to cover more of the cost of the test. You're going to have to take more time to do these tests and things like that. And the other thing that we discovered, while employers are required to provide 4 hours of PTO for someone who wants to get vaccinated and provide some PTO if they're having a negative reaction to that vaccination,
Correct.
For those who choose not to be vaccinated, that's on your own time.
So you don't have to provide time.
The employer does not
testing.
have to provide paid leave for someone who needs to go get a test. That's up to the employee. So again, if the employee has made the decision not to be vaccinated, then the employee will have to figure out on their own time and on their own dime how to get tested, where to get tested, and all that. The employer is not responsible.
So from a testing standpoint of view, I know that it has to be an official, testing process, right? And my question is, have you read anything about those proctored testing kits where, you basically have a computer doctor that comes up and then they proctor it with you? My understanding is that is an acceptable method. Have you read anything on that one way or the other?
I have not heard anything one way or the other on that. The key is if you do have a proctored test and it is part of a certified testing facility or testing procedure that has been accepted by DHHS, by USDHHS, that falls in compliance with the rule.
Okay.
If it's just something that you grabbed over the counter or you've done through a pharmacist, that may not necessarily fall under this rule.
It cannot be, my understanding is it cannot be a swabbing process that does not have a witness participate in that's certified.
Correct.
So that may, that's what, and again, that's what, as I read it, it's like I think that may fall under that. I just haven't seen that.
Right. So
super clear.
So if anyone is using that, is going that route, they want to make sure, all right, again, dot your own I's, cross your own T's.
Right.
If that's not a certified place, well, great. Thanks for the 15 minutes or whatever that you spent.
Right.
It doesn't count. You got to do it again.
Right. Okay. And the employer, going back to that, the testing, because I think that's really important to kind of flesh out, is that if the employer would choose to provide, an app, a process, or something to make it a little easier on the employee, they're probably not going to cover the cost. They don't have a requirement to cover the cost. But if they do that, that's a nice thing. Like that's kind to provide an easier method to do that.
It is. It is kind, and it may actually help the employer compile the records that they'll have to keep. Should there be a spot inspection and making sure that the employer knows the vaccination status of everyone who is working for them. You're going to have that, and you have to keep those records as long as this rule is in effect. And with that, let me go back to why I mentioned how this is an ETS, and but OSHA's ETS is a little different than my OSHA's ETS. If my OSHA were to issue an ETS, that does not indicate the start of the official rulemaking process. There's a whole separate act in Michigan that dictates how my OSHA would institute or would be able to adopt what's known as a quote-unquote permanent rule. At the federal level, as soon as OSHA releases this ETS, it also counts as their official notification to the public that they're starting the official rules-making process. And they're more than willing to continue to take in public feedback. So,
I got to stop you right there. I told you he's the wizard. Come on, this is really good stuff. So, all right, go ahead. I just had that like wizard moment, and I'm like, nope, you are.
Right.
Okay,
so,
go ahead.
all right. So, everybody say it with me: expecto patronum. So, OSHA, once OSHA put out their ETS, that is their official notice that they are looking to make this a permanent rule at the federal level. I think now here's where I get a little gray because I'm more trained with the state process, but I think this could become a permanent rule in anywhere from 6 to 8 months. Unless OSHA or Congress or the president takes different action.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
You will see on the OSHA website next to the rule, hey, if you've got any more comments about how this is structured, please let us know because we'll continue to take those public comments. They're saying that because this is part of the official rulemaking process at the federal level.
Wow. Okay. All right. Wow, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, right? Because that's the part to watch, right?
It is. Speaking
of part to watch, where I think I checked last night at maybe 9 o'clock or something, but there's the hold or the pause on, based upon some of the state's objection, if you want to say, to
talking about the lawsuits.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So And what I'm hearing, so then again, I get two kind of different paths. You've got some people saying, well, because of that, I don't need to start getting ready for December 6th, which, by the way, I disagree on. And then you've got others saying, no, I better still get ready because I don't have that much time. So that still is, though, to be factual, there is still the lawsuit stuff that's holding out there.
There are multiple lawsuits going on through different appellate circuits throughout the nation. I think the one that caught everybody's attention was what happened in the Fifth Circuit, which is Texas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The circuit court there did issue a temporary stay. Let me stress the word temporary stay, because they think there is a reason to hold a case on this and actually hold a hearing on this. And so they issued a temporary stay until they were able to cover take care of the entire case. That stay is only applicable in that circuit. So Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. They don't have to follow that rule right now based on the temporary stay. But as soon as that stay goes away, then you go back. For everywhere else in the nation, there is no stay, there is no pause. If you were looking to get this ready to be implemented by December 4th, by January 5th, you need to continue doing so, because the 6th Circuit, which Michigan is in, hasn't said anything. The 7th Circuit, which our friends in West Virginia, haven't said anything. Yeah. Folks up in the 11th Circuit, which is down in Atlanta, Florida, they haven't said anything. But there are cases in each of those circuits that could come through at some point and issue a stay. The safest course of action, just to, because the courts can be weird. Act as if there's no stay, act as if there's no pause. Just get ready to comply with this, because you could get a stay today. It could disappear in 24 hours, right, and then we're back to the original timeline.
Okay. All right. Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, so here's the great news, everybody. We're going to continue this conversation with Dave on another segment, because there's a whole nother set of what does the employer have to do to be ready, and we're going to talk about that on the next segment. So for Dave, thank you for joining me. This is great. And for all those who are listening, let's continue to make work matter.